Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news and, well, two blokes chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
I was talking to our Mildura correspondent a couple of weeks ago, Katrina, and she was going on about how amazing Ouyen is. And I said, yeah, I was in Ouyen 40 years ago and I don't think it was all that exceptional. I actually then took an opportunity to go and visit Ouyen, and my goodness gracious me, is it going off? And I mean that not like a bucket of prawns in the hot sun. I'm going off like a firecracker. What a great place it is. And we have been fortunate enough today to be able to get hold of Tracey Lawson. Now, Tracey is part of a group called Ouyen Inc. That's not as in a tattoo part, INC.
I wondered about that.
Not INK. And she joins us on the line. Hello, Tracey.
Good morning. How are you, gentlemen?
Good. Sorry, gentlemen.
Yeah, we're good down here. Come on, talk it up, Neil.
No, we're great. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. As I said in my intro, which you obviously heard, Ouyen, to a lot of people in Melbourne, is a bit sort of 10 overs, no maidens, none for 40. Nothing special, just another little country town up in the northwest of Victoria. But because it's so far away from the rest of the population, most people don't realise what's going on. But what a little town that is. It's got a bit of get up and go about it.
It certainly does, and I've got to say it's probably the community that has a bit of get up and go about it as much as anything. But it's home and we love it, and we're pushing it as far as we can at the moment.
So paint the picture for us. We would be driving up from Geelong, probably cutting across from Ballarat, or if we're coming up from Melbourne, we cut across up the Calder versus Sunraysia. I guess it depends on where you're coming from.
You'll end up, either way, you'll end up on the Calder at what we call the 7 mile turn-off.
How far out of Ouyen's that? Sorry, it was obvious.
So, and then you'll come into Ouyen, and where that little spot, it used to be when they did the TV weather of an evening, that the hottest place in Victoria is Ouyen, and continually that was us, where about 110 kilometres south of Mildura, probably nearly as far northwest as we can get from you blokes at this stage.
Always a good place to be, as far away from us as you can possibly be. But I think that the thing that when I drove up, I was in Ouyen 4 weeks ago, when I dropped through, and I think the thing that struck me is you go through so many towns that have got, let's say, up to 1,000 people living there. And some of them have got a really sort of, well, that's it, it's all over, we're going downhill, nothing's going to ever change, it's just going to die away, and in 2 generations' time there won't be a town. Other places you go through, and it is up and about. And on the way up, I went through Birchip, for example. That's another town that's up and about. St Arnaud's up and about. But I just got a sense with Ouyen, something special is going on.
Yeah, very much so. And we are one of those towns where we're fighting against the norm, I suppose, at the moment for country towns that are declining. And we don't want to be a retirement town. We don't want to be a place where old farmers come to, spend the last 6 months and then roll off to Boot Hill or whatever. So we're doing what we can to encourage younger people to have a look at this area and decide maybe to settle and bring up families. We're dragging ourselves into the next century, and we're doing what we can to make it a really positive and popular place to live.
The other thing that's happened around some country towns, perhaps forced by government, but has been taken on really well, is the injection of migrant population into small country towns. And I suppose the best one that's really rejuvenated Nil has been the Karan or Burmese people that have gone in and worked at the Lover Duck factory and have really blended into the community and lifted the spirits of the whole place. Is there any migrant population getting up into that northern part of the Mallee yet?
Not so much to this area. Certainly the Weeman, Nangelock, Car Warp areas where the almond processors are. We're more dryland farming down here, so we're still considered family-style farms that employ, dad, maybe a couple of sons. We don't rely on irrigation or anything like that, but we're looking at trying to get what is a freight terminal here in Ouyen for rail, and that would certainly encourage a big boom in our population and would encourage migrant population to be involved in that.
Yeah, one of the problems with that sort of farming up there is that the machinery's got bigger, which means the manpower is less, and that's one of the major reasons the population's dwindled somewhat, is that a farm that normally would have had son, dad and 2 workers back in the 60s and 70s is now really run by one person and massive machinery, hence the population is under pressure.
Very much so. And then we've also got the fact, a lot of our government agencies closed down. So in the 80s, 90s, we lost SEC plants here. We lost telecom. We're continually fighting with banking closing. Geez, this is really starting to sound like a negative.
No, but it's good to paint the picture of where the base was. Then you project the good story in on top of it. I think that's a better way to go.
Most definitely. And look, we're all about the good at this stage.
And I think the other thing that, and I know our Mildura correspondent, Katrina, who did say to me this morning when she was texting, she said, when you're talking to Tracey, say hello from Katrina. She's part of the Northern Mallee Leaders group that came down and visited you and were absolutely inspired. One of the things I know she is quite keen on, as are her friends up in Mildura, is the reinstatement of a passenger rail line between Mildura and Melbourne. That would go through Ouyen, presumably?
It certainly would. And passenger rail is something that's been talked about for a long time. I'm going to veer off it slightly. Our boost at this stage is we want freight properly. So, but both work well together. So if we could actually get some governments to look at finalising and finishing off that rail plan as it was intended to be, then we'd all benefit.
I've got to say, when I was driving home, Rob, down the Calder, there's a stretch of road, and it must be 30 or 40 k's, where every literally 1 or 2 metres, there's a new railway sleeper laying on the side of the road waiting for them to redo the line, which I thought was a good sign, because if they're going to put freight or passenger rail through, they're going to be doing something with the railway lines. So if anybody needs any sleepers for their garden, we don't condone going and knocking them off, but there's plenty to choose. The other really important story, and the one that I wanted to talk to you about in the whole, that was the whole spark for this conversation, is there is a body of water not very far out of town, like it's literally on the edge of town. Tell us about the Ouyen Lake.
Ouyen Lake, it's made such a difference to my community. There was a push for probably the last 20 years to get recreational water returned to the Ouyen area. Once upon a time, all our water was delivered by a channel system. And when we went on to pipeline water and the channels were all filled in, that meant that all our farm dams, our water reservoirs, that sort of thing, they dried up. Our little lake out at Timberoo or Walpiup couldn't have water pumped into it anymore, and this area lost all its recreational water. So for 20-odd years, there was a push to build a lake, and then in 2014, I think there was a final push. It was a now or never sort of a moment, and public meeting, and the community really got behind it. A site was finally decided on, and away we went. And from there to 2019, basically, we've now got a lake, and it's just marvellous. It really is. It's regenerated the community. It's become a focal point. I took the Northern Mallee leaders down there for an evening, a barbecue, and maybe a couple of beers while they were down here in Ouyen, and it's made such a difference. It really has.
Tracey, I don't know if you can remember a young fellow named Darren Bennett, who I reckon's about 45 now, and he lived in Ouyen until he was 15, and he's driven past and seen the lake, and he has just had great visions of his youth in the town. It's great to see it back to its old glory, if you like.
Very much so. I reckon Benno was up this way not so long ago.
Oh, you do know the great man?
Oh, I'm quite familiar with the family, yes.
And
he'll be listening this morning, so good morning, Darren.
The nickname Benno, I'm just struggling how he... But I think the really nice thing about the lake is when I was in town, Rob, I went to visit Ouyen to catch up with three people, two of whom I met. The other one was Tracey, who wasn't around. I apparently found out that night she and I were sitting in the same cafe in Mildura having a feed, completely oblivious to one another. I spoke to three people while I was there. The guy who's the butcher, the girl who runs the pub, and a bloke. When I went out to have a look at this lake, there was a bloke coming the other way in the traditional Land Cruiser ute. And he pulled up next to my car, and I think, to quote him directly, he goes, "What do you reckon about our lake, mate?" And I said, "It's just phenomenal." And he then spent the next 10 minutes waxing lyrical about the people who were involved and how it brought the community together and the fact that most of the work's been done voluntarily outside of hours. He was just beside himself. And I think that's got to be part of the whole push for the community too, doesn't it, Tracey?
Yeah, very much so. It's the lake was built pretty well by the community, so it's a community asset. All of the earlier earthworks and everything were done by community, so just your average mug farmer who would get together with his mates, they'd come in with their machinery, they'd move a bit of dirt around and all of that sort of stuff, right through the planning. We had locals put themselves on government boards so that we could actually have a voice in what was going on. We had a formal working group, and even to now, it's still run by a volunteer committee who meet regularly and decide, what's going on, furthering it, and it is just a community-owned asset. We haven't relied on anybody else to build it for us. There was less than, I think, $1.5 million in funding, which we're extremely grateful to state and federal government for. But if we look at it, it's probably closer to a $5, $6, $7 million project. That's made up of community volunteers just giving their time and their machinery.
And the thing is, too, there's barbecue facilities that are available, or if they're not quite available yet, there's toilet blocks out there, soon to be camping facilities as well. It becomes a real target, doesn't it?
Very much. We've got a playground. It's the whole area, the 14 hectares is ringed with lawn, irrigated lawn. So you can sit anywhere around it. We're supported by Victorian Fisheries who stock us with fish. So if you come up, you bring your fishing rod and you've got a really good chance of catching rainbow trout or golden perch. There's actually a fishing competition on there today. And it's just continual. We've got a really good playground for kids to spend their time on. There's a fishing jetty, you name it, we've got it.
It's magnificent. It's a perfect segue you got in first, but I was going to suggest we have a regular fishing correspondent on the show, and one of the joys he talks about is going to small country towns and fishing. It brings a huge number of people in, and therefore the vanilla slice sales go up, the pie sales go up, the whole town benefits from it. So I was going to ask you about the sausages. Yeah, I was going to ask you about the stocking of the fishing, but you've answered that there's fish available in the lake. So another big part of the tourist attraction.
Yeah, well, definitely. And for us, probably a turn up. We were expecting, the silver perch, the golden perch. Everybody loves to catch a yellow belly around here. But when fisheries suggested we throw some rainbow trout in for fly fishing, that was something that was a little bit off the cards. But by crikey, it's been popular. And I know of people who are travelling from Hamilton who come up to go fly fishing in our little lake. So it's paying off for us, most definitely.
Hope you're listening, Digi. Need to get that boat up to Ouyen.
Absolutely. And the colour of the water, you got it in your mind, Rob, you've obviously not been there, I have, and you think to yourself, it's a lake it'll be brown. It's almost luminous blue. I was talking to the old mate out at the thing, and apparently it's something to do with the level of gypsum that's in the water or around the water or something. Totally safe, but it's just got this really blue tinge to it.
No way. We actually drain it every second day and then we repaint.
Repaint the water.
Yeah, don't say things like that because Rob's actually going, oh, really? I didn't realise you could do that.
Were you tricking me then, Trace? I
I
thought you were serious.
something like that.
Hey, do you still make the best vanilla slice in Victoria up at Ouyen?
Oh, look, it'd go close. We're certainly the home of the competition.
Mm.
This is where it generated from. I've also got to say, Birchip does a killer vanilla slice as well.
A killer vanilla.
I'm all for share on the love.
You know what the big problem with Birchip at the moment is, though? When you get to the turn-off, you come up the main drag and you turn left to go out to Ouyen and Mildura and Woomalang and places like that. They're digging up the main street, so you can't get a park.
I'm sure Sharpie will work out.
He much down the side of the road with a tray. So in terms of, we've now got the entire listening audience of Two Blokes Chatting. He's just rung and said, I want to go to Ouyen. If they're coming to Ouyen, they're allowing 5.5 hours, I reckon, from Geelong and or Melbourne. What accommodation awaits them if they were to stop in your town?
We've got a variety of accommodation. Something that has taken off here in the last few years is actually the B&B style accommodation.
Mm-hmm.
There are a few of those around. We've got a couple of really good motels as well. One at the moment is just in the process of changing hands, so I'm not sure how available that is. We've also got caravan parks. If you go out to a little town just to the south of Aswalpia, there's a wonderful camping facility, wayside stop out there that's really popular as well. There's, all around us, there's a lot of accommodation.
And how long before the lake's available as a camping ground?
Not 100% sure. The committee's working really hard, and there's stuff we've got to concentrate on first before we get ahead of ourselves. Certainly it is in discussions what we've got planned, and watch this space, I think, for that one. That'll come before too long.
Yeah, absolutely. So if people want to follow you, Ouyen Inc., INC, on Facebook, that's the best approach?
There is an Ouyen Inc. page. Of course, Ouyen Inc. is, and it's short for incorporated.
Yeah, as distinct from a tattoo parlour.
Yeah, well, there's a few of us that are tattooed, but it's not,
It's not a Facebook page where people are showing their anchor and sailor on their right arm or something.
I don't know that I can believe you anymore, Tracy. Now that you've been tricking me, I'm not quite sure whether you're serious or not.
Oh, you'll find out one day.
When he comes up to check out that. Like, Tracey, thanks for joining us on Two Blokes Chatting, and you've officially become our Ouyen correspondent, so we'll be certainly back to you at some stage to have a chat about what's going on in your town.
Beautiful. Happy to talk any time about the whole Mallee region.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tracey. Tracey Lawson there from Ouyen Inc. up in the beautiful town. I've got to say, the beautiful town of Ouyen. It's a great part of the world.